Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of Post Loons live here on Sota Soccer. I'm Jacob Schneider. I'm your host tonight. I'm joined by my co-host and wonderful content creator, Dominic Bisogno. Dominic, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Would have liked for a slightly better result to talk about with you tonight, but overall, doing very well.
I think there's a lot of positives for Minnesota United to take away tonight, especially in the final third. I think Mender Garcia might have had his best cameo/showing of the year. A few moments of a lack of discipline in terms of offside moments or incorrect decisions, but can't deny the effort tonight from the group, and especially Garcia. I mean, the counter on the Loons' opening goal with Josef Rosales was, I mean,
Absolutely.
stunning counter, blistering speed. Lots of positives to take away. Frustrating in terms of the fact that they couldn't buy a goal at the end. I mean, you hit the woodwork/post 4 times during the game. You have 2 goals called back for offside. You have Brad Stuver playing the game of his life. And on top of that, you're without dubbed starting striker Luis Amarilla. So there's a lot of storylines tonight. There's a lot to talk about. Folks, we're here for Post Loons. We're here to talk for the next 45 minutes. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in that press conference. We've got Emmanuel Reynoso news. We've got the rumored signing of Timo Pukki. What's going on with Luis Amarilla? What did Will Trapp say about their performance today? And, how do they prepare for Toronto FC on Saturday? Another home game. Home results have not been what the Loons have wanted, but they're ready to turn things around. And it was the first thing they spoke about in the locker room today following the result. They didn't care about today's game. They looked completely past it. The players immediately said, we've got Toronto on Saturday, and we've got to do something for our home fans because they deserve it. So big show. Make sure to tune in for the entirety here. Send us your questions and enjoy. And a reminder, if you are watching on YouTube, you can send us a question. If you're watching on Facebook, send us a question. If you are watching on Twitter, unfortunately, StreamYard is not compatible with live shows on Twitter to send us questions in. However, right beneath our names on the screen, are our lovely Twitter handles at DJ Bisogno, at _ Jacob Schneider on Twitter. Send us your questions on Twitter if that is where you're watching. We'll read them on the screen, and we'll talk over the next 45 minutes about what we just saw, what's to come, and what are the storylines surrounding Minnesota United right now. So give us a like, give us a share, retweet, and sit back, enjoy. Have a beer, have a rum and coke, whatever the hell you want tonight, and let's enjoy ourselves, folks. Your final tonight: Austin FC 2, Minnesota United 1. Dom, what are your overall initial thoughts from the game, and your biggest talking point heading into Saturday now?
I think the big thing, and to some degree, I'm going off of what you were saying there, is that while this is a loss that does end an improved streak of league form for Minnesota United, this feels like a very different loss than some of the losses this team suffered recently, whether that be the Open Cup loss to Houston, the SKC loss, the 3-0. This felt like a loss in a game where Minnesota United certainly could have done better, could have drawn or won this game, got unlucky in some moments, certainly put in the effort, and certainly unlucky to not be given more. And so my big takeaway going into Toronto is there's ways to build momentum off this result. There's ways to use this result to positively inform the next game, whereas you might not feel that after losing 4-0 to Houston Dynamo in the Open Cup.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my first takeaway.
Do you believe in the concept of a good loss, Dom?
Yeah, I think there are teams that do or don't know how to make a loss a good thing. But I think that, again, particularly because the way this game played out, I think there is the potential for this to be a good loss, to be a result that actually can fuel this team.
I think that's the best way to put it. It is fuel for Saturday, because it was an overall pretty good performance. I'll talk about Kervin Arriaga in a little bit, but beyond Arriaga's cameo off the bench, I think everybody in the group, had a relatively good game. And, I want to give some flowers to Will Trapp, especially, who's, had some on and off performances in recent weeks. But he's really coming to his own in this starting role alongside Hassani Dotson. And, he's locked down the midfield, and he's, been relatively consistent with above average performances of late. And that's really important for a player whose form was up and down at the end of 2022. And he saw himself in and out of the starting lineup here in 2023. And it now appears that Hassani Dotson and Will Trapp is that midfield pairing that Heath has chosen to go forward with. And I think it's really, 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 it says a lot about him as a player, but also him as a person to see these consistent performances keep popping up. But we got our first question of the show here, Dom. Or comment. Christopher Alfevby is always in the show here. We always appreciate him. But the day the Loons become clinical consistently is the day we're not around anymore. Some positives, but the same result in the end. Chris, what I'll say is the fact that they had 2 offside goals taken back. The first one, the angle shown on the Apple TV broadcast made it appear that Mender Garcia was level with the defender and not offside. We weren't given, the lines on the screen. We weren't shown that, but the angle shown on the Apple TV broadcast was not definitive. And I think the commentary team made a great point in saying that why is the AR raising their flag when VAR is there for that specific moment? Let VAR do their exact job in using precise lines and imagery and, electronic technology to figure out what happened there. There's no way that the AR can determine if a player is, a few inches offside. VAR can. And if that was the correct decision, that's what VAR does. But when a call that close is called on the field, odds are it's impossible to change it one way or the other. If you call it a goal, if you don't, simply because of the mere inches it takes to make a decision like that. And then I'll add in, on the second goal that was taken away towards the end of the match from Hassani Dotson, Adrian Heath and Will Trapp both stated post-game that they were not given reasons beyond offside for the goal being called back. Trapp discussed with the ref on the pitch. He was asking, are you calling it back for a handball? Was there a foul? On the ref just says offside. Nothing more. They weren't given a second look on the screen in the stadium either of the play. And then post-game, they did not have enough time before the press conference to, get another look at that goal that was taken back. And what I'll say is the offside rules are very confusing in soccer as a whole, not just Major League Soccer. And if my understanding is if the defender makes a play on the ball before the attacker does, and even though the attacker is in an offside position, the ball is live because the defender played it. But it sounds like they said that before the ball hit the post, Hassani was already making a play towards the ball, like a run, and by doing so, canceled out or negated the shot. And I don't have the vernacular to understand that, Dom.
I'm not sure anybody does.
My brain's just kind of like, what is going on? Yeah. But that's what we were told. And I think that's where I'll leave it. Dom, what did you see on those 2 goals?
Yeah, well, with the Dotson goal, it's hard for me to take a stance because admittedly, I'm not sure I fully understand their reasoning. That being said, there's definitely a chance that that's on me and not on them. So, that's a question mark for me. The first offside goal, the Garcia offside, yeah, to echo your point, the broadcast made the point that that's probably a call that either way VAR isn't going to overturn, unless they have some really exact measurement that shows clearly the offside. If he doesn't flag it, the VAR probably doesn't call it off, and so that almost becomes a matter of luck then for which team the AR just kind of calls for, and so that's a rough one. It looks very close to me. As far as the clinicalness of the team goes tonight, it's hard to say. I mean, it felt like they did a pretty good job of getting shots on the goal and just got quite unlucky either with the post or with the goalkeeper having a great game. I don't know if that was necessarily the problem tonight.
Paul Forrester, always in the chat here, along with Christopher Alfevby. He's got a question now or a comment. Unlucky not to get at least a point. He says the attack looked good. The offside calls killed us again with 7 offsides to 0 offsides. And we take it out of Toronto this week and it dropped 9 on them. Listen, if the Loons drop 9 goals on them, I will personally I will send we'll do some big giveaway next week too on top of the one we're dropping tomorrow. If you're a Patreon to Sota Soccer, just know we're doing a sick Patreon giveaway that's going to drop tomorrow and go through the end of maybe the end of June, middle of June, TBD. Probably before the international window is when we'll do it. We'll end it. But Paul's right. They were unlucky to not get a point tonight. I think Minnesota United played a great contest. And I asked Adrian Heath about the 7 offsides to 0. And I said, do you see that as a flaw in the attack? Do you see it as you guys are doing things right and people are just mistiming it? Do you see it as a youthful attack that's just mistiming things? I mean, Rosales, 22, Bongi, 23, Mender Garcia, 22 or 23 too. It's a young attack, and you've got your veteran up there is Franco Fragapane, who, I mean, Fraga's a great player, but I wouldn't consider him a leader in the final third. You have a very youthful core there with no relative leader because Robin Lod is injured. Emmanuel Reynoso is not playing tonight. So you're relying on a veteran like Will Trapp, who's all the way back in the middle of the pitch to kind of lead there. And it takes a lot. And, I think maybe getting a veteran attacker up there might help with that the youthful group they have at the moment. Some experience, some leadership. We'll talk about that in a little bit because the Loons are linked to a player who would fit that mold. Dom, Minnesota United could have earned their fifth or sixth, I'm trying to remember now, win on the road this year. But they have had immaculate road form. And I think looking to tonight, even then, I think teams have to note that Minnesota United might be, one of those dark horse contenders that ruin or spoil a party at home. How do teams prepare for a team who might not be in the best form at home, but they note that every time they play before them on the road, they've been fantastic. How do you think they prepare?
That's a good question. It's obviously not normally how teams would imagine games going. Obviously, the home side, you sort of have an implied advantage. And that's probably still true when teams play Minnesota United, but it's certainly also the case that the Loons seem like they find an extra gear sometimes on the road this season. How to prepare for that? I mean, I guess it really is just it's making the defenses of these hosting teams have to make sure that they're stepping it up to match that energy from the Loons attack, particularly like tonight, and sort of not letting the excitement get to their heads and keeping the crowds behind them. But yeah, no, I mean, it's been an interesting trend. I think really the first couple of years in MLS, Minnesota United were not associated with good performances on the road.
Exactly.
And this season particularly, obviously only about halfway through, but this season particularly, it does feel like there's this trend of them being very competitive on the road, even in games like tonight where they don't actually get a point. They've just seemed very alert away from home, which, again, we talk about, a good loss or positives from the loss. I think that is a positive take from this loss. It's just the fact that Minnesota United lost on the road tonight, but they lost on the road in an incredibly tight match where you could very much describe them as unlucky. So, I mean, that's something a lot of teams would lose an arm for. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a big positive takeaway there.
So I know somebody you want to talk about tonight is Josef Rosales and the performance he put in at left wing. Dom and I were talking before the show here, and in our pregame document, he wrote down that Josef has got that dog in him, and I told him he doesn't have that dog in him. I had to delete what he wrote because he spelled it D-O-G. He's got that D-A-W-G in him. I mean, what a performance from Josef tonight. I mean, he really stood on his feet and held his ground against, a very good defense and broke through barriers, played his runs well, and he's not a natural left winger. Folks, if you're in the chat and you want to, and if you've got any, thoughts on Josef's performance tonight, toss him in there, even if it's just a comment. We'll read him here. But he's really growing into his own on that position, knowing that, Ray isn't back. Fraga is playing the 10. Sangbin's confidence might be a little low. He might still be growing into the team. He's still a very young player, and he's stepping up into that role now. Dom, what'd you see from Josef tonight that made you think he's got that D-A-W-G in him?
The dog. I think, as you said, what impressed me the most was, first of all, it was a great performance. But secondly, it was a great performance in a position that I don't think anyone is particularly sure that he can play per se, at least before tonight. It's by no means his natural position from his career thus far. And he just showed up so big. He was so aware offensively. He was so ready to take chances. This is a Minnesota United team that is in desperate need of people who will take their chances. And I mean, tonight he's unlucky not to have 2 goals. Obviously, the first one is ruled off outside of his role in it. It's the offsides on Garcia. It's an amazing finish. And of course, is where he needs to be in that second goal. He's showing a certain amount of attacking awareness that I just didn't expect from him, deputizing at left wing. I mean, even in that goal he scores that it counts, to know to partner up with Garcia to be that second runner in that attack. It's not necessarily a thing I would expect every defensive midfielder to know to do. So
you mentioned the finish on that first goal that was called back too. I mean, the bar was not Minnesota United's friend tonight, but on that strike, it just bar down. It reminded me like, I don't know if anybody here remembers. Dom, I know we're both pretty young, but this was one of my first footballing experiences. Was the 2006 World Cup, the penalty shootout between Italy and France. Okay. I forget who it was. It might. God, it was like the 4th PK in the PK shootout, but the PK went bar down in the net, and right then and there I was like, that is one of the coolest strikes I'll ever see, because you know how difficult it is to put the power on a shot to make it go bar down, in and out. It's just ridiculous. Plaudits to Josef, give him his flowers. Fantastic performance tonight. And we've got Foot Trap in the comments here mentioning that there's Will Trapp's burner account, everybody watching live on YouTube.
We found it.
Foot Trap 10. Okay, Paul Forster, it was Zidane. I couldn't remember if it was Zidane or not. Okay, there we have it. But Zizou, I mean, what a player he was too. But we're talking MLS here, folks. We're not talking European soccer yet. Shout out to the English Premier League for ending, by the way. I don't have to be depressed every Saturday or Sunday morning by watching Chelsea anymore. Everton survives. Jeremy Rushing, our founder's thrilled. Dom, do you support a EPL club?
I do. Do I have? Oh, here we go. I support this one.
Ooh, listen, I'm gonna be honest. I'm a big Darwin Nunez fan. I think he is legit.
I am too, actually.
Year 2 is going to be insane. People aren't ready for it. But folks, we're talking MLS here. Christopher Alfebby back in the chat says, hopefully has somewhere to be in the team once Ray is back, and 2 or 3 more players may come in the summer. Yeah, I mean, that is the go-to. Adrian is saying 1 to 2 players, 2 to 3 players. What I can confirm, though, folks, is that the Loons are in advanced talks to pursue a free agent right now in Norwich City, former Norwich City, and Finnish international striker Teemu Pukki. I asked Adrian Heath about it post game, and he, did his usual. I don't want to speak about players that are not my own at the moment, but he did note that the club does acknowledge that he is a free agent, and that's all he would say on it. Andy Greeter, the Pioneer Press, reporting today that the Loons are pursuing him. A few miscellaneous reports out there too, but the Pioneer Press was the first verified report of what's going on there. And I think everybody's gonna have comments on a 33-year-old DP. But what I did mention to Dom earlier is that the Loons really do need a leader up top. The Loons need a veteran. They need someone to help guide this youthful core they have at the moment. And that includes Sangbin, and maybe that's someone to learn from. Teemu's got the EPL experience. Unfortunately, Sangbin never had that chance when he was with Wolverhampton. He was shipped off on loan. So you've got a veteran. You've got a player who has numerous international appearances, numerous multi-goal seasons. I think it's a positive move all around. There's just the question mark regarding his age. So Paul Forrester, I know you've been asking about Teemu Pukki while we've been talking here. Here we go. He says, also Pukki party, yes or no? Give us the deets. I know you have them. Dom, how do you feel about the possible addition of Teemu Pukki to Minnesota United? And do you agree with my take or do you disagree?
I think I agree with your take. I think that you made a good note. This attack, particularly given the people that are absent right now, is very young. Certainly could use some leadership. He obviously provides that. This is, of course, a player that we know is very skilled in the attack, in the box. Would I have liked for them to potentially have signed him 2 years ago or something like that? Sure.
Yep.
But I think that's always going to be the losing battle for MLS teams, when they're looking for talent like that. I think he clearly would compete for that starting spot. I think he would put some pressure on the likes of Mender Garcia, particularly if Luis Maria is potentially leaving. And I mean, if they can get even a solid amount of his potential match to match, he has an impact for sure. So I certainly wouldn't blame them for pursuing him. I think he could very much benefit the team.
Say he, arrives in 10 days time from now. Minnesota United have a small schedule in June. They play the 3rd, the 10th, and the 24th, and then they're back on July 1st, the 8th, the 12th, and the 15th. A little congestion there. But if you can get, say Pookie arrives and makes his debut July 1st for Minnesota United after, roughly a month within the club, learning the system, learning the coaches, all that jazz. If you can get 10 goals out of him by the end of the campaign, I think it's a win. Right. I think that's what you're searching for, is just someone to hit double digits. And, here's something else, people will probably want to hear is that Saturday evening, if you are going to be at Allianz Field, there's a chance you're going to see Emmanuel Reynoso make his 2023 Minnesota United debut. Ray has been working his butt off this past week. Heath has been talking nonstop about his work ethic. He has been talking constantly about what he's been doing to make himself ready. He's been training when the team is on the road, when he's not with them. He's been training with head coach Cam Knowles of MNUFC 2, training with that group, helping the kids too. And on top of that, he's been doing 2 and 3 a day sessions a lot of the time since his return here. And he is nearing potential late cameo off the bench fitness. And that could happen Saturday at a packed house at Allianz Field. Dom, I can already picture what the atmosphere there would be like if Ray comes on and say the 86th minute, that place is going to cause a minor earthquake in the city of St. Paul. I mean, did you see the eruption of noise when Sebastian Driussi came on for Austin FC tonight?
Yeah.
I mean, there was I posted it on Twitter, and there was somebody who commented that they went to grab a glass of water, but they had their TV on, and they left the room. And it was during that Driussi sub, and he sprinted back to the room because he's like, crap, did they score? No, it's just Driussi coming onto the pitch. And it's crazy what a talisman means to a club beyond their footballing potential and what they bring. It's hope. I think that's a great way to describe it, is there are players who come onto the pitch that simply bring hope. Each club has one. Thiago Almada, Atlanta, Ricky Puig, LA Galaxy. Carles Hill, New England Revolution. I could go on the list. Lucas Zelarayan, Hani Mukhtar, Danny Buanga. I mean, every club has that one player, no matter what. If they come onto the pitch, the place erupts. And Minnesota United is Emmanuel Reynoso. Having him back, getting a new striker up in front of him, positives. There's lots of positives to look forward to. One thing I will mention on top of that is, folks, if you've been paying attention to the U20 FIFA World Cup, the Loons are watching it. They are scouting it. They are looking at potential candidates. That is where they originally found my good friend and guest of the show, Tomas Chacon. I'm looking for Tomas right now. I don't see him on my desk. But my Tomas,
a hard one to find, Tomas Chacon.
I know he is a hard one to find. Simply, Dom, do you know where he's playing right now? Could you give a guess?
Isn't he in Switzerland or something?
Can you guess what tier?
I want to say I saw a tweet talking about the second division.
Second division of Switzerland. We wish Tomas the best, of course. Always a good friend of the show. Always a favorite guest on here. He might not be making an appearance tonight, folks, which I apologize about. He might have wandered off to like Sweden or Norway or something.
Yeah, who knows?
But no, I mean, having the opportunity to bring in another young talent, there is an open U22 initiative slot in the club right now with the possible departure of Luis Maria, which has been rumored all week. We didn't see him in the team tonight. He wasn't on the bench. That could be happening very soon. Multiple reports circulating saying both Ecuador and Liga MX are suitors. There's a lot of potential for Minnesota United, and they're looking to add a midfielder and a defender on top of the potential DP signing in Timo Pukki. So keep an eye on that, and of course support the U.S. U20 team. They are making an incredible run in the U20 World Cup right now. Dom. 4 straight matches, 4 straight clean sheets. That's unheard of from any team in a World Cup. You don't. It doesn't matter what age group, what level, if it's men or women. 4 straight clean sheets uh, is ridiculous, and they are looking like a very talented side. I am excited to see what they bring, and everybody likes watching the kids. We're going to get to the halftime part of our show here shortly, folks, but we've got one more comment question from Paul Forrester here, who says, with the Bossy back in training, what do we do when he comes back, assuming 100%? Put him at left back in place of Kamar Lawrence, move Tapias to left back or CDM, and put Bakai at center back? There's so many options. What are your thoughts? Dom, you want to tackle this one?
That is a good question. I mean, obviously, one of the big moments of tonight was Kamar Lawrence's injury. I like Valentin. I think he actually plays quite well anytime he gets minutes of the team. But obviously, there's reasons that he's not necessarily starting games. I think once Dabasi is healthy, he has to play somewhere. I think it's important to get that quality back into the 11 as soon as possible. We haven't really seen Tapias out wide for this team yet, so I don't necessarily know how to feel about that. I guess what feels like the safer approach would be to put Dabasi out wide.
Hear me out. Back five madness.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, we hearing it. We hearing it.
Maybe it'll work if you have. Maybe it'll work with the boss. Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Give me a 5-2-1-2 with Will Trapp and Hassani Dotson beneath Emmanuel Reynoso, with potential rumored striker candidate and Bongi Hlongwane up top. Give me the madness. DJ Taylor running up the flank. Kamar Lawrence up the flank, and you've got Bakai, Mickey, and Boxy deep. Give me the madness.
That sounds interesting, Jacob. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't hate the sound of that. I think the one thing that makes me hesitant is that I liked the idea of a back five leading up to the season, and then in practice we've seen some sort of up and down performances when the formation's played around with. So that's really the only reason I would be hesitant. The idea of those three guys together at the back line and allowing the fullbacks to be more aggressive, I mean, that sounds good to me. It's just a matter of whether or not it would actually work. I just don't have the data to really make a call on it. That's an interesting idea.
I hear you, Dom. I hear you. All right, folks. Well, we wouldn't be a podcast right now. We wouldn't be a news organization. We wouldn't be anything without our wonderful sponsors. And tonight, I would like to thank our great friends over at Pence Homes for sponsoring tonight's episode of Post Loons here live on the Sota Soccer social media channels. We'll jump right back into the episode in just a minute. But first, I have to tell you about our friends over at Pence Homes. Owned by Minnesota United fan Nate Pence, Pence Homes was founded on the idea of providing customer service that exceeds expectations and making the home buying and selling process as simple as possible. Nate and his team specialize in St. Paul and Minneapolis and can help you navigate the ever-evolving market with the right tools, technology, and expertise. Pence Homes knows how to help you get the most for your house and get you into the home of your dreams while staying in your budget. Contacting Nate is really simple, too. Just go to pencehomes.com or you email him directly at nate@pencehomes.com. That's PENTZ homes.com. Pence Homes proudly supports local Minnesota soccer clubs like Minneapolis City SC, Minnesota Roar SC, and we're extremely grateful that they're extending their support to here us at Sota Soccer. That's PENTZ homes.com or email Nate at pencehomes.com. Thank you again to Pence Homes for sponsoring today's episode of Post Loons live here on Sota Soccer. Back to the show now here, Dom. Folks, if you are enjoying the 29 minutes you've been with us so far, give us a like, give us a retweet, give us a share on the social media channel that you're watching on right now. And keep sending those questions or comments, and there's lots of hypotheticals to talk about, lots of storylines from today. We've already tackled the news surrounding Timu Pukki, the rumored potential transfer target for Minnesota United FC, the return of Emmanuel Reynoso to Minnesota United FC off the bench this weekend against Toronto. It's possible. On top of that, the rumored exit of striker Luis Amaria. And, there's also injuries tonight to both Josef Rosales and Kamar Lawrence. We're going to talk about their statuses coming up here shortly. So send us those questions. Give us those shares on social media. And if you are enjoying what you're doing, always support us here on Sota Soccer by subscribing to our Patreon. You can do it so easily by going to patreon.com/Sota Soccer. All right, Tom, back to what we're talking about now. You and I were talking pregame, and one thing you mentioned too was that the goalkeepers tonight in Austin versus Minnesota played on their heads, including Dane St. Clair. There's an early save where the reflexes on DSC are insane. You know what I'm talking about? Can you picture the one I'm talking about?
Yes, the short range. I'm
Alex
blanking
Ring.
on who shoots the shot now. I'd have to check, but yes,
That
it's
Alex Ring.
Alex Ring. It's a short range save, maybe from about the edge of the 6 yard, maybe something like that. And I mean, to be fair, there were multiple times tonight this really happened, but that's a great example of it. St. Clair moved so quickly that when the shot went off, my brain just went, "Well, there's no way he's getting to that." And all of a sudden, he was there. I mean, it really, I do think Dane St. Clair is hard done by the fact that this game ends in a loss, because I really think he put it together a really solid performance, and that it hasn't necessarily been the case every game this season. But I really think tonight he actually did his job very well, made some really big saves. There were multiple times where there was a shot in the game, I believe it was from the left side. It would have been the first half, left side, that the shot went off and the ball moved so fast, and then it just appeared in his hands. Yeah. I didn't even see him save it. He just had it suddenly.
Spider-Man reflexes.
I mean, it's just he really did have a wonderful game. Hard done by the fact that there's some defensive errors and those 2 goals go in, and that's the story of the game. But yeah, no, I really think of all the potential defensive errors to point at, I really think Dane St. Clair had a great game.
Dane must be noting that Into the Spider-Verse 2 comes into theaters this weekend. I'm gonna do my best to go see that this weekend, folks. If you have not seen the first Into the Spider-Verse movie, genuinely, it might be one of the best animated movies ever made. The soundtrack, 1, is incredible, but 2, it's like this comic book style of animation that's super sick. And it's got like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. You can never, Rotten Tomatoes is someone you can always trust, unlike your favorite local soccer team or, your soccer team abroad. You can never trust them. You can always trust Rotten Tomatoes. The second one comes in the theaters this week. I'm excited to go see it. But back to focusing here on soccer now. Dave Valensky is back in the chat. It mentions that Timo Pukki also has a lot of assists as a striker. That's something to note. And Bongi Hlongwane is sitting on 6 goals so far this season, triple his goal scoring record from 2022. There's a possibility that you unleash someone for Bongi, another outlet for him. But I think the big storyline that awaits Minnesota United is the one that Christopher Elfebvy says right here. He mentions, do you think Ray coming back will help Franco Fragapane find his form? And the short answer is yes, and the long answer is yes. But there's also an area where no fits in there, because Frog has been playing the 10. When Emmanuel Reynoso comes back, he's playing the 10. That is only where he will play. Josef Rosales has been playing quite well. Sang Ben has been playing quite well off the bench. We know that Bongi is locked in at right wing. We know that striker is likely going to be Mender for the time being until another striker is brought in. But then it leaves the hypothetical of left wing and who it could be. And there's competition between those two. And Josef versus Franco will be interesting. We know that Franco has the connection with Ray, with Bebelo, but sometimes a man in form is a man in form, and you can't take him out of the lineup. Dom, where do you see this as? And am I trailing off a bit? What do you think?
No, I think it's an interesting point. When Fragapane gets moved back to that position, there's going to be competition. I think Rosales looked really good tonight in that role. How often he's going to look like that at left wing, I don't know. And so perhaps Fragapane ends up starting just out of consistency. But I think it's a fair question of, well, does his form change? Well, maybe more importantly, his position's going to change. And what he looks like in that position is going to be sort of a completely separate conversation from what he was doing at the 10 for Minnesota United. So, I think it's going to be interesting competition for minutes on that left wing. St. Ben obviously also in that conversation. I think you have 3 guys who are all going to have sort of asterisks that make them seem like maybe the guy to go with. Obviously, St. Ben has this new youthful energy, high potential. Fragapane has a little more experience. Connection with Reynoso. Rosales has looked really good recently. So yeah, I think there's going to be competition there, but I think that's good. I think frankly this team needs that competition in those key spots to keep these guys going. We're potentially losing some of that on some of the other attacking positions right now. So yeah, no, I think the plethora of options is actually a really good thing.
You mentioned losing that in some of those options. I think, even with the hypothetical introduction of Pukki, who is a Finnish international, Robin Lod isn't going to be back until I don't have an exact date on this, folks. I don't have an exact number, but from what I've been told is, the 4 to 6 month time frame is likely leaning the latter. You're likely looking at 6 months. So May, June, July, August, September, October. Maybe you get him back for an MLS Cup final, potentially, MLS semifinals, MLS playoff quarterfinals. Those are the hypotheticals you're looking at. So the safe assumption here is to say that you're not going to see Robin Lod back in 2023, which is ridiculously unfortunate because, one, he's a joy for us media members, always puts a smile on our face. He's always candid, always honest, and always willing to step up when, maybe others don't want to. But you lose the possible connection too. And I'm sure they were looking at Teemu as an option when Ray was healthy. When Robin was healthy, excuse me. Yeah. So Pukki would be the 4th Finnish international that the Loons had signed. Rasmus Schüller, I would deem a success with Minnesota. I think, all around that's a successful in and out player. Robin has been incredible for them. Jukka Raitola, not so much a success, but a valued bench option when needed. Very minimal cameos, very minimal times needed, but there when they need it. So they know they can go there. They know that Robin and Teemu have a relationship. Teemu tried to bring him to the UK in 2021. He posted about it publicly, so we know that's true. But, there's a lot of potential for Minnesota United in the coming months. And I think, these storylines that surround the club right now are mainly positive. And I think looking at the live standings in the Western Conference, going into tonight, the Loons had a 3-point lead over Austin. So now Austin and them are level on points. But the Loons are still ahead of them in goal differential. So the Loons sit 7th. They dropped 1 spot this week. But, 5th place San Jose is at 20 points, okay? Then 6, 7, 8 are all at 19 points. 9 is 18 points, and 10th is 16 points. It's early in the campaign here, folks. We're at a deadlock in the Western Conference, and the Loons are right in the midst of it. There's not a whole lot going wrong at the moment, but I think it'd be fair to say there's not a whole lot going right either. They're, as Will Trapp said post-game, actually, and I quote him here, is that they are, they exceeded expectations on the road this year. They are above the standards that MLS would usually hold for a team. And I think looking at that, the season will even out. They'll get their home wins. They'll have their home losses. There'll be a few draws in between. But getting those road results early, I think it's a big positive in the long-term goals of what the MLS season presents. So, Dom, there's a few storylines surrounding the league tonight. The big one right now, though, is the CONCACAF Champions League final. It unfortunately looks like MLS is not going to take the title this year, as Club Leon lead LAFC 2-0 in the 85th minute, which I'm going to be honest, I didn't see coming. I don't think many did. LAFC put forth their best lineup, and on their best day, they are the best team in North America. And Leon, they're a really talented side, but I look at the LAFC side and I think they're better. I genuinely do. So it's really unfortunate to see them lose the CCL final here. There's 5 minutes left in regulation, but overcoming a 2-0 deficit.
Well, I to give you some hope, Jacob, my understanding is this is a 2-leg final.
No. The finals are 1-1, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I would. Okay. I was under the impression it was 2 legs.
Hold up. Is it 2 legs?
It hasn't always been, but my understanding is this year it is.
All right, folks, erase that, Jeremy. Do a little audio mixing there. It's 2 legs this year. I was not aware. Paul
I don't know why
Forrester
the change,
confirms.
because it hasn't always been. I don't know why the change, but it's yeah.
I hate that.
It's a little weird. It's a little
I'm
weird,
going to be
yeah.
honest. I hate that, Dom. I don't like a 2-leg final. A final's a 1-all. That's why my thought process that way. I mean, you look at every other final in every other sport, every other soccer championship, every other everything.
Yeah.
It's a 1-all. Why is it? Ooh, 2 legs is gross. LAFC hosts the
This is the
second.
reason.
I know. Get your dinero. CONCACAF said, all right, folks, the Gold Cup in the Nations League this summer is not enough. We need a 2-legged final. Give me a sold-out stadium in Mexico. Give me a sold-out stadium in Los Angeles, and we want 98% of the profits. CONCACAF doing CONCACAF things, Dave Walensky says. Folks, I apologize for not realizing that. But LAFC hosting the final on Sunday. I mean, turnaround. Now, here's the real question. Dom, you may know this. Chat, you may know this. What are we seeing on away goals? Does that factor into the tie here? Anybody know offhand? In the meantime, I'm going to talk some MLS results on the evening tonight. Some very interesting storylines surrounding the league. I think the big one, though, is Dom, you mentioned this one to me before our show here, is the chaos that was Atlanta United versus the New England Revolution. 3-3 tie there. Carlos Hill from the New England Revolution set an MLS record tonight for the most time between 2 goals scored in the first minute and in the 93rd minute. 92 minutes between goals scored. That's insane. I mean, scoring in the first minute itself is a feat, but 92 minutes between goals. That's quite the record. Columbus overcame Colorado Rapids 3-2. Former Loon Sam Nicholson on the score sheet for Colorado. Shout out to Sammy. DC and Montreal 2-2. Inter Miami falls to the Red Bulls 1-0. FC Cincinnati continues their ridiculously impressive form. 3-1 over NYCFC. The Union scraped by over Charlotte with a 1-0 win. The Loons followed this Saturday. Toronto FC drew to Chicago Fire 0-0 tonight. And, everything I've seen surrounding the game, they were lucky to not get battered by Chicago. One thing I did see, though, early in the match was Fire goalkeeper Chris Brady took a wicked shot to the face, and Apple TV decided to zoom in on what appeared to be a bloody nose, a bloody eyebrow, and a bloody cheek for a good 8 seconds. And I was just like, what are you doing? Like, nobody wants to see that. Sporting KC with the win over FC Dallas. Daniel Shalhoub has been unlocked, I think. I think SKC could be going on a run here, Dom. Shalhoub with a goal and assist to get the win over Dallas, who are in great form, by the way. But I think the biggest one to take away here is that the Galaxy have won an MLS game. I mean, I love it and I hate it at the same time, because we all want the Galaxy, the dubbed European face of the league, the team that everybody knows due to David Beckham, to be good. But at the same time, I take so much pride and happiness in knowing the Galaxy are terrible. So, but Chris Klein, president of the Galaxy, was fired yesterday. So this is the bounce back. We typically see that across sports, is that when an individual prominent at an organization or a club gets the boot, the next game or match they play, it's a pretty good performance. And I know that the fan protest ended, and that could play a role. But good for the Galaxy. I really like Ricky Puig. I think Javier Chicharito Hernandez is a joy. So we'll see what comes. We still got 2 more games ongoing, the West Coast shenanigans. San Jose lead the Sounders 1-0 in the 61st minute, excuse me. And then I don't know who put Magic Mike's drink from Space Jam in the Vancouver Whitecaps water bottles tonight, but it's the 64th minute. We've got 6 goals in that game. The Whitecaps lead Houston 4-2. That's wild. Yeah, here's Chris saying there's been an average of 3.7 goals per game tonight. Normal MLS after dark midweek. Dom, I mean,
that is insane.
Yeah,
that is insane.
Paul Forrester in the chat says Cincinnati continues to be a force. Most points through 15 games, 36, not including the shootout era. Yeah, and that's on top of like a $13 million outgoing transfer of Brenner, who's not playing. He's not playing for them, folks, and they just sold him for $13 million. Lucho Costa is playing unbelievable footy right now. Brandon Vasquez is a man in form. Just overall, really, really well coached team. And I think, something of a dark horse potential U.S. men's national team player here. We might see him at return for Matt Miazga into the group this summer for the Gold Cup and Nations League. It's been unbelievable for FC Cincy. So keep an eye on that. Former New York Red Bulls man, then to Chelsea, then on loan a few places in Europe, had a stint in Spain, now back home in the U.S. and playing with FC Cincy. So keep an eye on him. But Dom, we got to close out here on Minnesota United versus Austin. Some big moments during the match, like we just said earlier. The post, the crossbar, not their friend tonight. Brad Stuver playing on his head in net for Austin. Ending it on one big takeaway from tonight. What do you think is the biggest positive, and what is the quote unquote negative from the night?
Biggest positive is that there continues to be a lot of young guys in this team that show up big for Minnesota United. It didn't quite work out tonight, but you look at Rosales, you looked at Mender Garcia, you looked at Thonwane, who I thought had a pretty solid game considering he didn't get involved in the goals. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of young talent in this team. St. Clair, for that matter, you can add to the list if you like.
Yeah, yes, he's still young.
There's a lot of young talent here that is clearly able to get the job done in the right situation. There's a lot of young talent to grow. So that continues to be a huge silver lining for this team through this season. We also, through that, happen to see that Josef Rosales seems very capable at left wing. Negative, I would just say that, tonight, I thought the Minnesota United defense actually more often than not looked pretty okay tonight, but just in sort of key situations within the 18-yard box, they just didn't show the ability to read what was happening. I mean, with that opening goal, there is for what felt like an hour as I watched it take place, there is a player running open into the box I noticed the moment the ball got played. I noticed, oh, hey, nobody's marking that guy.
I have no idea what Kamar Lawrence was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't expect Will Trapp, your 6, to be making an outward run towards the left-hand side of the box there, despite him being the closest player to him. You can't fault him there. That's entirely on Kamar Lawrence and Mickey Tapias. But I'm gonna put the blame, primarily there on Lawrence, on not understanding the awareness of where Austin's players were in the box. Then we see Kamar injured later in the match. Zarek Valentin entered. Hope Kamar is okay. But, that's a few times over the past few weeks where Lawrence has a couple errors. And it's something to watch, especially going into the summer, as it's rumored the Loons are looking at a defender. Couldn't tell you if it's central or fullback, but they are looking at a defender. And if you look at the weakest link in that defense right now over the past few weeks, it's been left back. So maybe Zarek Valentin might get a run. I'm not sure, but it's never ideal to have your right back playing left back either. So the only natural left back of the club right now is Kamar, beyond youngster Devin Paddleford, but he is, playing for the twos, and he's not MLS caliber yet. So something to watch definitely over the next few weeks. But on top of that, Mikael Marquez, the Swede they signed this offseason, injured his shoulder in the MN UFC 2 match Sunday night. I believe Adrian mentioned it was something to do with his rotator cuff, possibly. Don't quote me on that, but injured his shoulder. And that's on top of, injuring his ankle 3 times already this season, the same one. He's just had a rough run of form. So not great news on defenders. Heath said post-game that Kamar was too soon to tell what had happened, but he hopes he's okay, and they'll have more on him tomorrow. And we'll find out Friday when there's an open media training session at the NSC. Dom, I'd say my biggest takeaway from the night is that Mender Garcia looked mature as a forward, despite some errors in terms of offside. Made mature runs, made mature passes, and until the hypothetical signing of Timu Puki were to arrive, I think getting him minutes will be crucial for his development. I would like to see Sangbin in a starting role Saturday. I'm not sure it comes. I think it'd be really cool to see a passing of the torch, to have Sangbin leave and Reynoso come on. See the youngster you signed, hand it to the pro, and see those two develop a little bit of a partnership maybe or something. It'd be a cool moment at Allianz Field, excuse me. So and my biggest negative is that Kervin Arriaga is just making so many simple mistakes. His first touch when he came onto the pitch tonight off the bench, he gave the ball away, and Austin had a chance to get the ball forward moving. And I look at the second goal, and it was a complete cluster in the box. There's no real control from anybody. But Arriaga has the last touch before Driussi scores, and he just lays it off in front of him with a sloppy attempt to try and find Michael Boxall to pass out. Just clear the ball. You concede a corner if you need to. You know, the odds that a team scores on a corner, I remember seeing it sometime. It's like in like 3 out of 90 or something. 3 out of 99, I believe it was. Like 3 out of 99 corner kicks a team scores. Those are good odds. It's just concede the corner and don't risk the goal. And it's a sloppy error. And, you know, Will Trapp and Asani Dotson have rightfully earned those starting spots. So, you know, moving forward, Curvin's got a lot to prove. And I think, you know, when you consistently make errors like these, it's hard to break into that group. So, Loons have Toronto FC on Saturday, back at Allianz Field. But before that, we've got one more in the chat here from Paul Forrester. He says LAFC have got one back late, 96th minute goal, only +4 extra time given. Controversy. That sounds familiar, Minnesota United. A certain amount of time given in terms of stoppage by the referee and a goal scored 2 minutes after the allotted stoppage time. Dom, have you ever heard of such a controversy?
I could never imagine in this beautiful league of ours such a silly thing happening.
The goal was scored by who else? Denny Buanga, your frontrunner for the 2023 MLS MVP. Ridiculously talented player. I love watching him. I'm excited for the second leg on Sunday, Dom. Are you excited? Yeah. On top of that, Sunday, folks, you've also got the US U20s back in action in the quarterfinals. They'll face the winner of Gambia versus Uruguay, which is a fun matchup. They play tomorrow in the quarters, and they'll look to advance. And Gambia won their group. Uruguay did not. So keep your eyes on that one. You've also got the CONCACAF Champions League final, second leg, which I knew about on Sunday. And that'll follow your Minnesota United action Saturday evening against Toronto FC at Allianz Field. Toronto, not a team in mental form, I'll just say. The Athletic piece on them this past week, published by the group there, was ridiculously entertaining and also worrying. The comments made by Lorenzo Insigne on head coach Bob Bradley, the news about Federico Bernardeschi trying to hold a players meeting to organize like a sacking of Bob Bradley. Then there's also the news that Bernardeschi refuses to stop vaping in the club center, the club locker room, and on the field. I mean, you look at Bernardeschi and you're just like, yeah, that dude smokes cigs. You just look at him and you're like, yep, that dude smokes cigs. He's a very talented player, but there seems to be a lot of issues off the pitch with Toronto right now. And, you know, the last thing coming out of that Athletic piece was that Bernardeschi and Insigne don't get along, despite both being Italian. And that was a thing Toronto knew before bringing them both in, and they're just not working out. And the duo are upset with Michael Bradley, complaining to Bob Bradley about everything, and nothing staying between the players. It all ends up with Bob because Michael tells him everything. It feels like a mess, folks. So there's a big story there. Keep your eyes on that 0-0 draw against the Chicago Fire for them tonight. We're going to close it out here, folks. We're going to wrap things up. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's episode of Post Loons live on Sota Soccer. Minnesota United fell on the road to Austin FC 2-1. Josef Rosales scored his first ever MLS goal. Congratulations to him. The Loons hit the crossbar 4 times. Brad Stuver, the Austin FC goalkeeper, played out of his mind, and there were some questionable offside calls. So there's your storylines from tonight. The potential signing of Teemu Pukki looms. Emmanuel Reynosa could make his 2023 debut off the bench, specifically Saturday night at Allianz Field. And folks, we'll keep going. We'll keep grinding the news, and we'll let you know the next thing we hear surrounding this club. If you enjoy Post Loons, if you enjoy the content we put out here at Sota Soccer, do us a favor and give us a follow on our social media pages. You can follow Dom and I on Twitter here. Our handles are listed on the screen. But more importantly, you can support us financially so we're able to continue doing things like this. I mention it every show, but you can support Sota Soccer at Patreon for as little as $3 a month. That's $36 a year. That's less than you pay for every streaming service to watch soccer combined, in like monthly, Peacock, like $5, Paramount Plus, $7, ESPN Plus is now $10. MLS season pass is $100 a year. I mean, it would mean the world to us if you do it. Those little things go towards gas money. They go towards getting a cup of coffee. They go towards supporting us. And, we love doing this for you, but we're not able to do it without our viewers, our fans, our readers. So thank you. We'll be treating you all tomorrow with a fantastic giveaway from a very famous Minnesota United player. Keep your eye on that. I'll be posting that tomorrow evening on my Twitter page. Be sure to enter it. It will be for Patreon subscribers only, though. So if you want to get in on the fun and the action, subscribe to Patreon. It's patreon.com/Sota Soccer. Thanks, folks. It's late here. MLS After Dark, shenanigans all night, LAFC pulling one back, chaos in Vancouver. It's been a night, folks. Thanks. Have a good night, okay?